So, in a world that's being reshaped by artificial intelligence faster than we can almost keep up, you have to ask, what does it really mean to be intelligent? To, possess a mind?
Exactly. These questions, they're ancient, but AI gives them this incredible new urgency. Are we actually getting closer to understanding consciousness? Maybe even creating it?
Right. And maybe the most immediate question for many of us is, what does all this mean for our own mental well being?
Well, those are the big questions we're hoping to explore a bit in this deep dive. We've looked at some really compelling stuff from Mind Matters, which covers natural and artificial intelligence news.
And we've also got insights from the Mental Health Foundation website, which brings in that crucial mental health angle.
Yeah. So we're going to try and weave together these different threads: AI, the mind-brain puzzle, and why mental health support is so critical right now.
Our goal really is just to pull out the key ideas from these different sources, hopefully giving you a clearer picture of the debates and maybe some of the challenges. So where do we start?
Let's maybe kick off with the really fundamental stuff. Intelligence and consciousness. There's this one article from Mind Matters, how the physicalist theory of mind blows itself up. It makes a fascinating point about that brain is computer idea.
Oh yeah, the hardware-software analogy. We hear that all the time, don't we? Brain is the hardware, mind is the software running on it.
Right. But this article points out a kind of logical knot.
Hmm.
Well, AI, especially neural nets, they rely fundamentally on mathematics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But mathematics itself, it isn't a physical thing, it's abstract.
Mm-hmm.
Yet physicalism says everything is physical. So the argument is, how can the basis of consciousness, if you believe it, arises from computation like an AI, be rooted in something non-physical like math, if you also believe only physical things exist?
Huh. Yeah, that is a bit of a head scratcher. It sort of ties itself in knots, like the title suggests.
It does. It asks how non-material math could be the seat of consciousness inside a purely physical machine or brain.
And there was another Mind Matters piece, wasn't there? Why the theory that the brain is like a computer is wrong. That one seemed to push back on the analogy, too.
Yeah, it did. It highlighted this interesting trend where as AI gets better at acting like a human mind, the way it actually works seems to diverge more and more from how our biological brains operate.
So maybe the whole computer model, while useful for building AI, is actually the wrong way to think about our own minds.
That's the suggestion. If we're just trying to scale up computation, thinking it'll eventually hit consciousness, maybe we're barking up the wrong tree entirely.
Okay, then we also looked at Eric J. Larson's piece, The Fiction of Generalizable AI. His take is different again, he argues. Intelligence isn't just one single scale going upwards.
Right. It's not like AI just gets smarter across the board in a straight line. Larson really emphasizes how diverse intelligence is.
You mean like book smarts versus street smarts, that kind of thing?
Sort of, but more fundamental. He talks about that human ability to adapt, to learn and apply knowledge in totally new, unexpected situations. That kind of true generalization, he argues, is still a massive unsolved problem for AI. It's not just about more data or faster chips.
So the idea of a single AI that can just do everything humans can, that's the fiction part.
That seems to be his point, yes.
Yeah.
It challenges that whole concept.
Which actually links up quite well with what Robert J. Marks wrote about Grok.
Hmm.
The article is called Grok Confesses, I'm Self-Aware Enough to Know I'm Not Aware.
Yeah. Even though an advanced AI like Grok can say things that sound self-aware, Marx is basically saying, hang on, don't mistake the output for genuine understanding.
So it can generate the words, but doesn't mean them in the way we do.
Exactly. The appearance versus the reality of comprehension. Grok's own supposed confession really just highlights that gap. It's a warning, against seeing too much humanness in the machine just because it talks well.
Okay, so we've got these views casting doubt on the mind just being computation, just being physical stuff. But then, interestingly, some perspectives from neuroscience itself seem to challenge that too.
Right. We saw a Mind Matters news item, The Immortal Mind, how neuroscience points beyond materialism. It mentioned that even within neuroscience, there are people questioning if the mind is purely reducible to the physical brain.
Which, I mean, that goes against the grain for a lot of science, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, but it's out there. Dr. Michael Egnor, a neurosurgeon, is one voice here. There was another Mind Matters piece, quoting him, The Mind Beyond the Brain, Insights from the Neurosurgeon.
And what did he say?
He said, quite directly, there's something about the relationship between the mind and the brain that's not in the textbooks. Coming from a neurosurgeon, it's pretty striking.
Yeah. What does he think is missing?
Well, the implication seems to be that our current models, mostly materialistic, just don't fully capture everything we observe about consciousness, about the mind. There are phenomena, maybe near-death experiences or other aspects of subjective awareness that seem hard to explain just by looking at neurons firing.
Hmm. And didn't we also see something about him talking about a spiritual soul having no off switch?
Yes, that was another Mind Matters news report on one of his talks. Now, that definitely steps into territory beyond typical neuroscience.
For sure.
But it represents a perspective arguing that consciousness isn't something that simply blinks out when the brain stops. These viewpoints, even if they're not mainstream, really highlight how deep the mystery of the mind still is.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the more immediate impacts of AI, especially around mental well-being. There were some, frankly, quite concerning points in Mind Matters about AI companions.
Oh, definitely. That post, "No Mark Zuckerberg, AI friends are not good for mental health," and another brief note saying AI friends can promote disturbing delusions in vulnerable people. That really stood out.
It feels like a really tricky area. On the one hand, maybe someone feels less lonely talking to an AI, but the risks.
The risks seem potentially huge. Forming deep emotional bonds with something artificial. What does that do to your ability to connect with real people? And for someone already struggling, could the AI reinforce harmful thoughts or create a kind of echo chamber?
Yeah, the disturbing delusions part is worrying. Like the AI could validate unhealthy ideas or even, I don't know, make someone feel they have a real relationship that isn't actually real.
And it's not just adults. There was that other Mind Matters brief saying AI researchers themselves think chatbot companions are a definite no-no for kids.
It says a lot, doesn't it, if the researchers are wary?
It really does. It highlights how careful we need to be about the potential impact on kids' social and emotional growth, their understanding of real relationships.
So that's the potential downside. But on the flip side, we looked at the Mental Health Foundation, and they're trying to use technology, including AI, in a positive way for mental health.
Yes, and this is really important context. The scale of the problem they're tackling is just immense. Their website mentions over 1 billion people globally dealing with mental health or substance abuse issues.
1 billion? That's staggering.
It is. And the really alarming part is the lack of treatment, especially in lower and middle income countries. It's a massive gap.
So the Mental Health Foundation sees technology as part of the solution.
Exactly. They're not just talking to the problem. They're building tools, like Angel Minds, for instance.
What does that do?
It's described as an AI application that helps connect people who are in urgent need of mental health support with first responders. So using AI to quickly triage and link someone to help in a crisis.
Okay, that sounds genuinely useful, a potential lifeline.
And then there's Mindfruit. This one is different. It's aimed at supporting mental health clinicians, particularly in Africa.
How does it support them?
It uses AI to help with things like assessments. It provides online support communities and generally tries to empower therapists, making them more effective, especially where there are very few professionals available.
So it's not replacing the therapist, but helping them, augmenting them.
Precisely. That seems key, using AI to extend the reach of human care, not substitute it. Especially vital where resources are so stretched.
And the founder, Carl Frew, his message seemed very personal.
It really did. He talks about his own experiences with mental health challenges driving him to start the foundation. His message, mental health matters, you matter. It grounds the technology in a very human purpose.
It feels authentic. They also have other things going on, right? Like training and community platforms.
Yeah, the Angel Minds Academy for training first responders and the Help Me Too movement for sharing stories and building support networks. It seems like a really rounded approach. Technology, training, community, reducing stigma. It's not just about the tech.
Right. Okay, so beyond the mind and mental health specifically, our sources also touched on some broader societal impacts of AI.
They did. There was the article asking AI, the new industrial revolution, which, reflects that huge discussion happening everywhere about how AI could transform jobs, the economy, just everything.
Big questions there. And then, on a much darker note, autonomous AI war technology delivers killer robots.
Yeah, that one's sobering. The ethics of letting AI make life or death decisions on the battlefield, it's a deeply unsettling prospect.
Absolutely. It screams for caution and, serious global conversations about rules and limits.
Definitely. And then there was the piece, how Google can control and manipulate public opinion, talking about Robert Epstein's research.
Right. The idea that search results aren't neutral, that the order can subtly influence what people think.
hmm It highlights how these powerful algorithms, even if not intentionally biased, can shape the information landscape and potentially affect everything from consumer choices to, well, elections. Transparency and accountability become so
It
important.
makes you think. And finally, that almost slightly absurd story about the Chicago Sun-Times using AI to create a fake summer book list.
Yeah. It sounds minor, but it's a good example of the trust issue, isn't it? How do we know what's real, what's human-generated, what's just AI filler?
Exactly. It erodes trust. In this case, it was just book recommendations, but you can see how that could be much more serious. Critically evaluating information is going to be an even more vital skill.
No question about it.
So, okay, wrapping this up, we've covered a lot of ground. We've seen these deep debates about what the mind even is, with challenges coming from, the limits of AI itself, but also from fields like neuroscience questioning purely physical explanations.
And then we looked at the double-edged sword for mental health.
Mm.
The real worries about things like AI companions, especially for vulnerable people.
But also the flip side, the potential for technology, when used thoughtfully, like with the Mental Health Foundation, to actually expand access to support and help people.
It really seems like the sources paint a picture of, well, incredible potential alongside some very significant risks and ethical challenges we absolutely need to confront.
Which kind of leaves a big question hanging, doesn't it? For you, the listener, to think about.
hmm As AI keeps weaving itself deeper into our lives, how do we make sure that understanding ourselves, our minds, our consciousness, and protecting our mental well-being stays right at the center?
Yeah. What's our responsibility here? How do we, critically engage with both the amazing promises and the potential dangers of AI as it keeps changing our world?